So, Chris, in your opinion, did they get this right?
You know, with all due respect to our former employer, Skip, this was lazy. They didn't get it right. They got it half right. LeBron James is the best player in the world, okay? He's the best winner. He's the best leader. He's the best playmaker.
Keep it going, Chris. Don't stop now.
He can score as much and as efficiently as anybody else in the world. He's not the best defender, but when the time comes, he can lock down pretty much anybody else on the planet.
Ask Kawhi and Paul
LeBron's
George.
right. He's the best player in the world. That's right. Secondly, I love AD, and I think he'll make a run at the MVP this year, but I cannot put him as the second best player in the world right now. And that's what I mean by being lazy with ESPN. They won the championship. He played well, so you put him at number 2. But look, my main thing with AD is right now, he's not an alpha. And the second best player in the world has to be an alpha. The second best player in the world cannot have 3 pivotal playoff games where he takes 9 or fewer shots. That I can handle you missing shots, going 4 for 15 or something. You were just off, but not taking more than 9 shots. That can't be the second best player in the world. The second best player in the world can't have 4 playoff games in the conference finals and the finals where he has 5 or fewer rebounds as a big man. And so I can't have AD at number 2. I got number 2, and I know he was lower on the list because he's coming off of injury, but I still have Kevin Durant number 2. I think that he'll take off where he left off when he got hurt 18 months ago. I got Kawhi number 3. I've got Giannis number 4 and Anthony Davis number 5, because I think all of the guys above AD, if they're by themselves, they can carry their team to contender status. We saw AD couldn't do that in New Orleans.
Contender status, but they've never done it by themselves. Chris, I agree with you. I believe LeBron was a slam dunk. And I told Skip at the start of the show, I said, I'm surprised AD is ranked so high. But I think a lot of it had to do, and you mentioned it, Kevin Durant. We have not seen Kevin Durant in 18 months. And although we believe that he will come back and pick up where he left off, we don't know. It's the unknown. It's the uncertainty. We also saw Kawhi Leonard have a 3-1 lead and gag it away. We also saw him load management. We also saw these...
Not in the bubble, you didn't.
Well, Skip, hell.
You didn't load manage in the bubble.
You can't load manage in the bubble because you played every other day in the playoffs. I mean, hey, Chris, can you load management playoff games? I mean, is that possible? Because if it was, I'm sure he would have.
He might have load managed the little 8-game regular season.
Yeah. Skip, he had to miss like 13, 14 games, and he ain't played but 65.
He's done that every year he's ever played. But every year back to his rookie year.
But, Chris, aren't you glad it ended up the way it did? Because had they won the title, this is another bowl for a load management. Only Kawhi cares about. He knows what he's doing.
True.
So now, get your butt out there and play. And because what it do, it ruined your locker room. That kind of attitude, the attitude that he came, it ruined his locker room. But not to get off topic.
Did it ruin Toronto?
You got leadership. You had leaders. Kyle Lowry. You had guy leaders. You had no leaders. Kawhi, they expecting Kawhi to be a leader, and that's not what he is. But anyway, had they put Giannis at number 2, I wouldn't have been terribly disappointed. But I'm not going to fight you because I believe AD will. And I guess this is projections because that's why Zion is 19 and they got Jamal Murray and Bradley Beal and some of the other guys ranked after him. Projecting. If you believe that Anthony Davis is going to make a run at the MVP, if you believe that he's going to be better in year 2 in LA than he was in year 1, then why shouldn't he be number 2?
I think the MVP is not always the best player. I mean, Steve Nash won 2 straight MVPs, and we all know he was never the best player in the league. He may not have even been top 4 or 5 as far as best players in the league those years. So it's a lot of what you do for your team, your wins and all that. And I agree with you. AD will be better this year than he was last year. I think he's going to really take off. So as a projection, that sits a little bit better with me. But right now, I just think KD and Kawhi and Giannis. I think they're legitimately better than Anthony Davis.
Before you go, Skip, one other thing. And because LeBron is going to take some time off, y'all only gave us 71 days. I mean, normally we celebrate 71 days, let alone get back for a regular season. So we hadn't even finished our celebration. But that's okay. We're going to have a 2-for-1. So we'll celebrate 2 championships. But this parade we about to have, woo, Skip Bayless. We're going to have us one of those Indians type. You know, they get married, have like a 3-month, when you got like, you know, high up there. We're going to have us a 3-month celebration.
Okay. You're still on a victory parade. This is the conclusion today of your victory parade.
No. They got to play. They got to start the regular season.
Okay, my first bone of contention with my friend Chris Broussard is LeBron greatest winner. He's lost 6 finals. Let's not lose sight. He's 4-6 in the finals.
Of currently playing right now, of the guys that's on that list, who's a better winner?
Yeah, right now.
Okay, next point. Shannon has softened on his stance that he opened the show with because Chris Broussard brought a little objectivity to the table. You had your pom-poms out. You were rooting the whole through the A block of the show about 1, 2, 1, 2.
But Skip, what did I said I was surprised that AD was number 2.
I don't think you were surprised. You loved it.
I did love it, but that doesn't mean I wasn't surprised
Chris,
about it.
then I immediately deflated my friend Shannon Sharpe by saying, well, time out. If you have the 2 best players in the world, says ESPN, then shouldn't one be disqualified by the other one? Because what a supreme advantage LeBron has. He's got the 2nd best player in the world alongside. He's got a co-star who ranks number 2.
Well, Chris, how many years was Shaq and Kobe the best 2 players in the world? And ain't nobody disqualified him?
Okay, but who was the odds makers' favorite going into the playoffs? It was the team in the basement. The Clippers were favored to win it all in the bubble going into the postseason tournament, right?
A lot of people lost money on that.
Okay,
too.
well, but they were favored. And so back to Chris's point, so Kawhi is 5th on this list right now. But if you look down to his co-star, he's 20th. Paul George, I'm not even sure he belongs at 20, but he made it to 20.
I mean, you that far down, could be considered a co-star? You might just be an extra.
Okay, but that's a case to be made that Kawhi should be actually higher than 5, to Chris's point, because he didn't have AD alongside. He had George Paul alongside.
He had Trez, who's also on the list.
Who ranks 76th on
But
this
you
list.
had him.
76th?
Let me ask you a question. Other than AD, who did LeBron have to make the list?
Well, he had playoff Rondo, should have been on this list somewhere. Not. Well, if you rank postseason performances, it'd be playoff Rondo. He might be 3rd on this list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you
That's
had
how
Pat
good
Bell.
he was.
And you had Pat Bell,
and
right?
Every time I looked up, KCP made another 3. So you didn't have help. Danny Green I know he missed 1 shot, but he made a whole bunch of other shots.
You know what? I love how you know what, Skip Bayless? You're the greatest revisionist in the history of the world.
I'm the greatest truth teller.
You didn't mention it. Chris, do you remember when they was going into the bubble, when Avery Bradley didn't show up? Who's going to make the shots? You didn't mention anything about KCP. You talk about Danny Green. You know, he comes and goes. Yeah. That's what got him in the doghouse in San Antonio. Now they win the title.
He has the record for finals threes.
He had.
Well, he did it, didn't he?
But you didn't. Hold on. So he had the finals record for threes. They got LeBron, they had AD, and they had KCP, they had playoff Rondo, and you still picked the Clippers. So what is that? So I'm confused now.
All I know is that it was all Kawhi all the time. It was Kawhi or bust for the Clippers last year. Paul George was depressed in the bubble. He was having issues in the bubble.
With that game, I'd be depressed too. Okay. Did you see him hit the side of the backboard?
I did.
You see him average 8 points in a game. 8 points in a game.
Yeah, look what Kawhi carried them to. It was him or bust on offense, and all of a sudden they're up 3-1 on a really good, really potent Denver team with 2 players ranked in the top 22, 10 and 22.
Yeah.
Right? And then what happened?
What happened?
They're up 3-1, and then they go up 15 in the first closeout game because of Kawhi 15? Leonard. They go up 19 in the second closeout game because of Kawhi Leonard, and 12 in the finale. And he had 1 horrible quarter, and it was the 4th quarter of Game 7.
Well, you can't have that.
Okay.
You can't have that, Skip. So I just want to help me understand this. Now, it was Kawhi's, Chris, and correct me if I'm wrong if I left out anything. It was because of Kawhi that they went up by 15. It was because of Kawhi that they went up by 19. It was because of Kawhi that they went up by 12. but I don't hear anything it was because of Kawhi that they lost. You tell everybody every time those boys didn't want to be there.
That's what Jared Dudley say.
But they wanted to be there long enough to get a 3-1 lead. You notice that, Chris? Now, I don't want to be here, but I'm up 3-1. But when I gag it away, I didn't want to be here.
Then the issues reared their ugly heads.
Yes.
Yep.
Chris, you follow this.
They did choke.
And maybe
There's no doubt about it.
Maybe I missed some information. But then the NBA says if you want to opt out, you can opt out. Avery Bradley opted out because he has a son that has some issues and he didn't want to run the risk of bringing that, being there. Trevor Ariza, he opted out. He had some personal issues. He needed to get resolved. He opted out. So in other words, the Clippers, if you didn't want to be there, you could have opted out. Paul George, they showed up. Kawhi Leonard showed up. But you know what they did? They got Skip, it's okay. They had meltdowns. Like you said, superstars, they had meltdowns.
LeBron's had a bunch.
Don't do that, Skip.
Well, he has.
Don't do that.
2011 finals. See that?
2020. Did you see the 2020? Y'all went to the divisional.
Thank you for bringing that up. What did LeBron and AD exactly prove against the 5th seed from the East that lost the leading playoff scorer in Game 1, Goran Dragic, and lost their MVP, Bam, in Game 1, and he was never the same after that? What did you prove? Did you prove you're the 2 best players in the world?
Skip.
I need to know because I didn't see that.
Chris, did the Heat beat the Bucks in 4 games? I mean, in a 7-game series, they beat the Bucks, right? And then they beat Boston also. So you make it seem like somebody just all of a sudden say, you know what, Heat, we want to match you up against the Lakers in the finals. They earned the right to be there, Skip.
I've never been sold on Boston, and I've told you from the start, I'm not sold on Giannis being that alpha with that dog in him.
Oh, my goodness.
Do you see it? I don't.
So, Skip, do you have a top 5?
Yeah, I've said from the start, Kevin Durant is still the best player on this planet, and I know he was out of sight, out of mind, but are you going to dock him for that? I say he'll be 99% of himself, and if he is, he will soon rise to the top.
And guess what, Skip Bayless? 99% of Kevin Durant ain't better than GOAT James. Let that sink in for a second, just a second. Let it marinate.
I'm going to let it sink all the way to the bottom.
Oh, we can put that. I tell you what, you know what? You don't say she don't know how to cook, but I cook in a crock pot. I'm going to let that thing, I'm going to put it there, put all my ingredients in there, and I'm going to let it cook slow for about 8 hours, and it's going to fall out the bone. So even with that being said, Kevin Durant not better than GOAT James.
Thank you for watching. You can subscribe here to get the latest from the show, and be sure to check out more of the best clips from Undisputed, or go watch a few other segments from our other shows on FS1.